I'm calling to order this hearing. It's actually a roundtable, public roundtable of the Council of the District of Columbia Committee of the Whole. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chair of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Friday, October 27th, 2023. The time is 2:04 in the afternoon. And the subject of this hearing, and actually I'm going to combine two hearings. I hope that doesn't mess anybody up. The subject of this hearing is consideration of two nominations by the mayor to the Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. PR 25-417, Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes, Andrea Jones, Confirmation Resolution of 2023, and PR 25-418, Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes, Joanne Lamparter, Confirmation Resolution of 2023. These nominations were sent by the mayor to the council on, if I can get the page right, on September 19th. And we have scheduled a second hearing to immediately follow, and I'm going to combine it with this hearing, unless I hear something from above. And that is consideration of, my hearing notices messed up. Consideration of a nomination by the mayor to the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. And that's PR 25-389, Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee, Nikki Cardamone, Confirmation Resolution of 2023. And this resolution was introduced at the request of the mayor on September 18th of this year. For both of these hearings, one hearing, the record closes on Monday, November 6th. And I say that because if anybody wishes to submit testimony or comments, or anybody who's testifying today wishes to supplement their testimony, they have less than 2 weeks, roughly, I think 10 days. Close of business, that's 5 p.m. on Monday, November 6, 2023. That's so that if we're able to, I will put this before the council at its November 7th legislative meeting. I'm going to say a little bit more. The Commission on Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes is a public body composed of 21 government agency representatives and stakeholders to support equitable access to high-quality out-of-school time programs for district youth. Out-of-school time means like before school, after school. The commission coordinates among government agencies, targets grant making, collects and evaluates data, and considers the provision of training, capacity building, and technical assistance to out-of-school time providers. The committee, the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee, serves to support district students who are child welfare and justice system involved. I should say, or justice system involved. The committee coordinates to ensure that every student who comes into contact with the child welfare, juvenile justice, and criminal justice systems receives high-quality educational and workforce development services that address needs, build on strengths, and empowers them to succeed. The purpose of this roundtable for all of these nominees is to receive testimony from the nominees, as well as any public witnesses who might come forward as to the fitness of these nominees for appointment to the committee. I've been sort of a little sloppy with my terminology. The council under its rules has hearings and roundtables. Roundtables have shorter notice. And so this is today a roundtable. The notices having been filed, I think, last week. And with that, let me call the witnesses. I only have witnesses signed up. So if Andrea Jones, I should check to see if there are any council members. Andrea Jones, OST Coalition nominee. Joanne Lamparter, OST Coalition nominee. And Nikki Cardamone, and I hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly, who is, says here, SCDC. I think it's Students in the Care of DC Committee nominee. And let's hear testimony in that order. So I've sent each of you pre-hearing questions, got your responses, and we also have written statements. And so I have all that. And why don't we begin with you, Ms. Jones?
Thank you, council member. Good afternoon, Councilmember Mendelson and members of the Committee of the Whole. Thank you for holding this hearing, and thank you also Mayor Muriel Bowser for this honorable nomination. My name is Andrea Jones, and I am a Ward 8 resident and a mother of 4 beautiful children, ages 18, 12, 7, and 4. I am humbled at the opportunity to serve as Commissioner of the Commission of Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes, OST. I currently hold my master's degree in psychology, specializing in applied behavior analysis, and I'm pursuing my PhD in behavior analysis. I am an advocate in many capacities, including PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, PALC, Parents and Alumni Leadership Council, and Advocates for Justice in Education, AJE. I am passionate about advocating for youth with disabilities to allow them the same access to after-school programs and summer camps as their peers. My advocacy started in 2017 when my daughter attended 1st grade. My daughter engaged in elopement due to her sensory sensitivities constantly and was ultimately suspended for 3 days and removed from her aftercare program because the staff did not know what to do with her and could not accommodate her needs. I started advocating for equal access to out-of-school time in 2018 and furthered my advocacy to include accountability of inclusivity of students with special needs. The OST Commission is currently taking steps to revamp its initiatives and goals, and I am confident that if confirmed, I can make a solid contribution. I envision the OST Commission's growth to support OST programs and create accountability structures through connecting with the communities. I would like to uphold the vision and mission of the OST Commission and strengthen the collaboration across the city to include OST providers and families. As an advocate in my community, I often speak with families and OST providers about their needs, so I look forward to working in a commissioner capacity to allow their voices to be heard. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before this committee, and I will be happy to respond to questions from you and the members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Lamparter, and am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Good afternoon, Chairman Phil Mendelson and members of the committee. My name is Joanne Lamparter, and it is my pleasure to receive your consideration for my nomination to serve on the Commission of Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. I'm grateful to Mayor Muriel Bowser for nominating me and honored to have this opportunity to serve the residents of our district. I've been an arts educator for the last 20 years and a DC resident for the past 16 years. What led me to my interest in the commission is my own personal experience in out-of-school time programs as a young person and the impact that they had on my emotional well-being and my career. As a teen struggling to fit in and with my own mental health challenges, I found my niche in an after-school drama group. But it wasn't just any after-school program. It was one with half hearing students and half deaf students. We came together to create a piece of theater to be performed for younger students. What was powerful about this experience was it was one that bridged language and cultural divides, one that provided an outlet for me to show up with my full self and to use creative expression, and to develop friendships while meeting adult mentors that helped me set up with a new way to see this world. This is the power of out-of-school time programs. That experience led me to my career. I'm currently the Artistic Director for Education and Theater for Change at Imagination Stage. We are incorporated in DC and currently run out-of-school time programs at a number of schools in the district, as well as programming through the DC Police Foundation with MPD's Youth Division, where we use theater as a tool to bridge cultural divides between DC officers and DC youth. In my experience working in all 8 wards of the city, I'm passionate about accessibility, something Imagination Stage is known for. Our theater programming for youth with cognitive disabilities has been recognized by the National Endowment for the Arts, and our programming with the deaf and hard of hearing students has been expanded thanks to a partnership with the VSA of the Kennedy Center. I believe every child has the right to participate in programming such as arts, sports, wellness, and more outside of school so that they can gain mentors, find their passion and creativity, and have safe and healthy outlets where they can succeed. Regardless of ability, financial status, and what ward they live in, these are basic rights for the children of DC. High quality after-school programming means safer communities. As a resident of DC, as a parent of a very soon DCPS student of pre-K, and as a youth advocate and educator, I believe that I can give back to the city and will bring my full breadth of experiences alongside my passion to the commission. I plan to bring an artist's voice to the table, a knowledge of programming for and with youth, alongside my experience with disability communities and the deaf and hard of hearing community, as well as my own perspective as a parent. Thank you for your consideration and the opportunity to testify. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. And I will have some questions in a minute. Ms. Cardamone?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson and members of the committee. My name is Nikki Cardamone, and I'm grateful for your consideration of my nomination to serve on the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. I would like to thank Mayor Bowser for nominating me, and I would be honored to have this opportunity to support the children and youth of the district along with fellow committee members. I have spent my legal career focused on students' education and special education rights. Previously, I was a staff attorney with Community Legal Aid in Worcester, Massachusetts, representing students in special education, school discipline, and language access cases. In 2021, I moved to Maryland and began working at Children's Law Center, or CLC, as an education staff attorney. In my current role at CLC as a senior education attorney and a part of CLC's Healthy Together medical legal partnership, I represent parents and guardians whose children have varying educational needs, including students with disabilities. I have learned from caregivers how very challenging it can be to obtain the educational services their children need to meaningfully access their education. I have witnessed the challenges faced by parents and students whose primary language is not English in the education system. In my role, I also work with CLC's Guardians Ad Litem, or GALs, who represent many of the youth in the child welfare system in DC. I serve as an advisor to my GAL colleagues about the educational situations of their youth clients in care. Through this collaboration, I have worked with colleagues to seek to overcome the significant barriers that these youth can face in accessing their education. These barriers include, but are not limited to, changes in placement that lead to disruption of education, gaps in education, and a lack of clarity of a student's needs and how to appropriately meet those needs. I have additionally learned of the needs of students who are transitioning out of high school and the importance of assisting and empowering youth with that significant step. At CLC, I also collaborate with our policy team to seek to address systemic issues in education faced by DC students. I am also a member of the Superior Court Education Work Group and a co-lead of the work group's neglect subgroup. Through this membership, I meet with other professionals from various agencies and organizations who are working to support the educational needs of youth involved in the child welfare and juvenile justice systems. All students have a right to a quality education. I would be honored to contribute to the very important work of the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee as a representative from an organization that provides services to students involved in the child welfare system, to strive to resolve educational barriers for these students and for students who are involved in the juvenile justice system. If I were to be a part of the committee, I would plan to bring my knowledge and the knowledge gained from my colleagues' experiences to my work with the committee. I am excited by the prospect of being part of the committee and working together with others invested in supporting youth involved in these systems to improve educational opportunities and outcomes for youth in the district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for this opportunity to testify before you and for your consideration. I would be happy to respond to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, each of you, for your testimony, also for your willingness to serve. Let me just begin by saying that I try to have hearings on all nominations that come before the committee. I can't speak for other committees. I think it's a useful way of having some discussion about the the issues. Not that we'll get a whole lot into that, but also it's important to provide the public the opportunity, should there be concerns. The fact that there aren't a lot of witnesses here to speak suggests that folks are not upset with any of you, which is a good thing. But I think it's also good to have that opportunity. I ask questions at these confirmation hearings. I always ask 3 standard questions. The first is, do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district, federal, or other state or local governments? And let's just kind of go across the table. Ms. Cardamone
Thank you for the question. No, I do not.
and Ms. Lamparter
I do not.
and Ms. Jones.
I do not.
Thank you. I should note the hearing notice had a 3rd nominee for Commission of Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes, and I believe that the mayor withdrew that nomination. That doesn't affect you, but just for the record. Second question, do you know of any potential conflicts of interest that might affect your serving on the board? And if there's a possible conflict of interest, how would you handle it? Ms. Cardamone?
I do not know of any conflict of interest of serving on the committee. If a potential conflict would arise, I would want to go to staff, fellow committee members, as well as the Office of General Counsel, and seek ethical advice, do my own independent research, and seek knowledge about if this is a conflict that would need to cause me to recuse. If such a conflict would arise, I would plan to recuse myself as necessary.
Ms. Lamparter?
Based on conversations with staff at the commission, I don't believe there's any existing conflict of interest, but I know to go to Director Hill or other staff at the commission if there might be the potential of a conflict. And if there was, I feel totally comfortable recusing myself and also seeking counsel.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I do not foresee any conflicts. However, I am familiar with a few of the other commissioners, including Dr. Lowe, and I'm comfortable with talking to them about that. If there is an issue, I am comfortable with accusing myself. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say this, if there's a possible conflict, it's always good to disclose. There's no harm in disclosing. And then, of course, checking with somebody like General Counsel to see if you have to recuse yourself. The 3rd standard question I ask is, are you able to meet the time commitment, the time requirements to serve on the commission, to meet the commitment? Ms. Cardamone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would be. It's my understanding the committee will meet quarterly, and maybe subgroups will form that will meet more regularly. And I'm happy and committed to meeting with the committee.
Great. Ms. Lamparter?
Yes, it is my understanding that the commission meets as a whole group about every other month, and then there's subcommittees. So it's about a once-a-month commitment, and I am prepared to do that and consider it a part of my duty as a resident, as well as in my position at Imagination Stage.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
I am currently on a subcommittee of the OST Commission, the Outcomes and Needs Assessment. So I'm already aware of the time commitment, and I am able to meet the time commitment of a commissioner as well.
Great. I think sometimes we appoint folks who don't have the time, which is why it's always important to ask that question. Give me just a second. I think this was in my pre-hearing questions to you, but how do you see, what challenges do you see, if you're aware, what challenges do you see with the commission or the committee, and how do you hope to contribute? Ms. Cardamone.
Thank you. I don't see any challenges, Mr. Chairman. I really respect and admire the idea of bringing folks together from various agencies and organizations, including youth and parents, to have important discussions about educational opportunity and outcome for youth who are involved in the juvenile and child welfare system, so I don't foresee any challenges. Could I ask you the second part of your question, please, again?
Oh, don't test me on this. The contributing to it. So what challenges do you see and how do you hope to contribute?
To contribute. Thank you. I think I could contribute because I've been a part of working with students who are in the child welfare system through my role at Children's Law Center. Specifically, I work with our Guardian Ad Litem or GAL program, and I give advice to the GALs about the educational situation of their youth in care. I also am on the Superior Court Education Work Group and the co-lead of its neglect subgroup. And that group meets regularly, and we discuss actually in a similar fashion to the committee with different folks from different agencies about what are the obstacles, what are the barriers to education for youth in the systems, and how do we collaborate to overcome those systems. So I think I could contribute in those ways.
So really bringing the work that you've been doing to the committee.
Thank you. Yes, I would hope so.
I wasn't trying to suggest I was saying it better. I was just simply restating.
I understand. No,
Yes.
thank you.
So the same question to you, Ms. Lamparter, although you are with the OST Commission, not the Students in the Care of DC.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe the challenges include being mindful that all 8 wards of the city have access to strong after-school options and before care options. Making sure those opportunities are available for young people with disabilities, as well as the hard of hearing community, which is quite large in DC, as well as making sure the nonprofits are really equipped and ready to support schools, to support community centers with a variety of opportunities. And my experience can help with that, given I'm coming from a nonprofit who has been an out-of-school time provider in the past, but also my knowledge of the hard of hearing community in the area, and my experience in all 8 wards of the city.
I'm going to have a follow-up, I think, Ms. Jones.
Yes, thank you for the question. The OST Commission is currently revamping its image through new initiatives and goals. Me being on the Needs Assessment Committee, I was a part of some of those new initiatives. And I know that will be a challenge to roll out. How I play into it is my current advocacy work would allow me to reach out to OST providers, as I currently work with DC Action and also other advocates and families to really understand the needs of the public in the community and how that can work with the initiatives that the commission is rolling out.
I have some follow-up with regard to the out-of-school time. Every year, the council gets challenged that we need to increase funding, and there's only so much funding we can do. There is a sense that the need for out-of-school time programming is much greater. And then there's also a concern about equity with regard to how we distribute, I guess that's the way to put it, those resources. There's some communities, more affluent communities, that they have access to funding that they can obtain out of school time before or after school programs that lower income communities can't for their schools. There's also been some talk about, maybe I shouldn't put it that way, but an interest in continuing to increase diversity with the programming, as well as the programmers or providers. So I'm tossing out all those kind of issues. I shouldn't say I'm tossing out all those issues and just wondering how you feel about them. Who do I start with? I'm going to go in reverse order. Ms. Jones.
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's actually something I've been advocating with a few other parents for the past 2 years. The problem was, as far as like data points, there weren't really many data points to go on. So it was, yes, the funding is needed, but we don't really know where and how it's being distributed. And I think with the new OST commission, as far as data points and really understanding where the funding is going, I think that's going to kind of clear up a lot of those foggy areas right now, as far as funding, as far as how much the OST providers need, because there is in the initiative about advocacy for the OST providers. And in my work as OST commissioner, I want to actually reach out to those providers to really get solid numbers so we can understand how much funding is needed. But it really, in my opinion, it came down to the lack of data that was not given. But I think through the new data points that they have now, I think we have a really good direction on where to go and where to find all of these answers that you're looking for.
Chairman, I think you've touched upon some of the biggest challenges with out-of-school time programs. Equity and distribution of funds is always an issue. We see it at Imagination Stage when we work with schools during the school day. Specifically, you'll see a school that has a really organized PTO and has that wealth of motivation behind them is at a huge advantage to a school that doesn't have that, or the school that has a principal who really knows how to work the budget, as opposed to a school where the principal is spending more of their time making sure that students have what they need to eat. So already there is a gap in equity, and I believe the commission can really focus on that. Additionally, diversity in providers is extremely important. Students are looking for role models, and they need to be able to see themselves represented in those role models to really achieve their goals. And so that is a huge gap we see right now with nonprofits as well. So those are two areas.
So with regard to the out-of-school time commission, I have a sense that some of the meetings have been more lively than maybe is constructive. There's sort of a diplomatic way of putting it. I'm not sure how I want to ask the question. I think I'll ask it this way, which is, how well do you get along with people? Ms. Jones.
I get along with people pretty well. I like to understand different people's point of view and understand where they're coming from. In my current advocacy, I work with and walk with people in different stages of life, different life experiences. And I don't think any issue is wrong. I just think it's from their perspective, and I am open to listen to their perspective.
Ms. Lamparter.
I appreciate the question. I work in theater, so teamwork is a big part of my job and working alongside people. I'm also a member of the leadership team of the theater. So I work in a team of 3 where we make fiscal decisions for the theater, HR policy for the theater, as well as programmatic decisions. I feel very comfortable in a team situation.
I could ask the same question of you, Ms. Cardamone, because I don't want you to feel left out.
I enjoy collaborating. I enjoy learning from others and bringing experiences, like gathering people's experiences and trying to help it inform my advocacy and my knowledge. So I'm looking forward to being a part of the committee if I am so lucky.
So I've sort of made light in asking the question, but it is a concern, and I don't mean specifically with the out-of-school time commission, but we, the government, should always be appointing folks who work well together. The value of having a number of people on a committee or commission or board is that you're bringing different views and different perspectives. And where that becomes constructive and productive is where everybody is working together instead of throwing chairs at each other. Because then you come to an agreement or a compromise, or you recognize that one suggestion is really better than all the others, whatever. But the ability of people to work together and get along is critical. And I don't always ask that question. I should. And it has come to my attention that there's been some more acrimony than there needs to be. So that's what made me think of that. Ms. Lamparter, your organization has been involved with out-of-school time programming?
In the past, we have, primarily with Montgomery County Public Schools as opposed to the district. In the district, we focus primarily on in-school residencies where an artist is in the school during the school day paired with a classroom teacher, bringing arts integration.
So then there isn't really an issue between the DC Out of School Time Commission and
I don't
Sure.
believe so, but I would discuss that if there was a potential conflict, whether it's because I knew the school being discussed or the other nonprofit being discussed, I would feel very comfortable recusing myself from that conversation.
But would you say that your experience would enable you to give good, useful feedback to either the staff or to, I don't know that you really, maybe you interview the potential grantees, but to give them useful advice?
I do, yes. I've been familiar and working with out of school time with whether with the CPS, MCPS in other states for my whole career. That's part of being an artist and a teaching artist. So I feel very comfortable with the landscape of DCPS out of school time and would feel comfortable giving my advice and feedback, as well as my experience working in partnership across nonprofits as part of Imagination Stage.
Ms. Jones, did you testify that you've been active in PAVE?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
And PAVE has been, I'm going to put it this way, even though it's a mischievous way of putting it, has been noisy about out of school time.
Yes.
What are some of the concerns that PAVE has had?
It's really around, again, equity, also around transportation, and also around funding as well.
Funding being we need more dollars.
Yeah. But I have actually, outside of PAVE, have done my own advocacy along with 3 other parents around special education, special needs children and their access to out of school time as well.
Yeah, that's been an issue.
Mhm.
All right, let me just see if I have any other questions. Ms. Cardamone, do you think there are any areas where cross-agency collaboration could be improved? Meaning it's a problem now and needs improvement?
Can I ask, Mr. Chairman, cross-agency juvenile justice, child welfare? Or,
Yeah, and even within like juvenile justice, there can be multiple agencies involved. I'm just asking, I'm just exploring, whether you see a lack of cross-agency communication or collaboration that needs improvement.
thank you, I understand the question. I think as I'm fortunate to be a member of the current Superior Court work group, and there's 2 subgroups, Mr. Chairman, you may be aware, there's the neglect subgroup and then there's the juvenile subgroup. And myself, I'm one of the co-leads of the neglect subgroup, and our group meets generally monthly. And then the 2 groups come together quarterly to meet and discuss issues and what we've been discussing as separate groups together as a whole. So I think there's already powerful collaboration between the groups and the agencies who work in both systems. I think there's always room for improvement. There's always room for further collaboration. Ironically, we just had a quarterly meeting of the full work group yesterday. And at that meeting, we were talking about kind of what next steps we could do, and folks who could connect offline, and some possible future meetings or such as that. So I think there is a really good core collaboration that exists. And I think, again, always room for furthering that and seeing how we can collaborate to solve the issues that the youth face.
I'm going to ask another question for you, different. So we have a charter school, as I understand it, that's an operator for public education in the jail. And the council recently, I think this was at the mayor's request, transferred jurisdiction for that. I think it had been with DCPS. It's now with the Department of Corrections It's a little odd. Department of Corrections is not exactly what I think of as a local education agency. It's not to, I mean, I voted for it, so it's not to criticize what I did, but do you see any problems with that? You know, that arrangement, or just maybe more broadly with the provision of education in the jail?
I appreciate the question. I think I want to start by saying, Mr. Chairman, that my professional background is focused on supporting students in the child welfare system. So my familiarity with students in the jail is more so from things I've learned from colleagues in other agencies. That being said, I'm familiar with the recent litigation and the brought by two entities, I believe, about the poor services youth in the jail received during the pandemic and the ongoing settlement regarding those lack of services. I don't have, beyond what you've shared, I don't have knowledge of this most recent situation, but I think what it comes down to for me is federal law and DC law is very clear that students have a right to an education and students with disabilities have a right to the free, appropriate public education. And so we would want to work collaboratively to ensure that that's happening under any model.
Okay. You may have touched on this earlier, but are there any areas, I'm not quite sure what I mean by area, maybe aspects of what the students in the care of DC have done well? Or any aspects or areas where they've done really badly?
Any areas where I believe the committee will be meeting for the first time in the coming season, hopefully in the winter. So I'm not, if you could rephrase your question, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure I'm answering the right thing.
It's basically asking for strengths and weaknesses to the extent that you've seen them of the students in the care of DC coordinating committee.
Oh, thank you. I think the strength of the committee is the makeup that I understand it to be, of the collaboration between folks who are involved with children in the juvenile justice system and those who are involved in the child welfare system, as well as bringing youth themselves and parents and or foster parents themselves. So I think that's a strength, the collaboration and bringing people together who've had varied experiences. I'm trying to think of a potential weakness could be that some people, you know, when we bring people together who have had varying experiences, they may have varying ideas for solutions. But I think that's an opportunity, to your earlier question, to learn from each other and try to work well together to find solutions that can work for youth in both systems.
Thank you. We've been joined by Councilmember Zachary Parker. Councilmember Parker, do you have any questions?
I was struggling to get off mute. Yes, I do.
Proceed.
Thank you. And this is a general question open to either of you. There's been discussion around the need for more out-of-school time programming as well as more access. There's a barrier when it comes to students with special learning needs. And can you just speak to your either experience working with programs to provide access or to tailor programming for students with specific learning needs, or just your understanding or knowledge of other cities or programs that may be doing a good job at that? To just make clear what I'm lifting up is, yes, we need more programs, but we also need more programs that provide access to our students with special learning needs. And a concern I have is that without specifically focusing on that, we may miss the mark by just saying we need more out-of-school time programming. So do any of you have access or information there or experience or knowledge that might be helpful?
Sure, I really appreciate the question. I think we both are eager to answer it. Yes, so my workplace imagination stage has a lot of experience specifically working with young people with disabilities. And our approach is specifically that it takes a lot of training for the staff and staffing appropriately for the young people in the room. So what we do is we view the parents as partners. So there is often, or in the case of being in a school, the teacher as a partner, but getting some basic information about the student. What is the student like? What motivates the students, and where are the students' challenges as well as their assets? And then we often bring in another staff in the room to be part of that staffing. I think in a school system, it's called a paraeducator. We call them an inclusion facilitator, really with the goal of scaffolding the instruction, just like it would happen during the school day, so that every student in the room can learn. Without trained educators, you're not going to meet the goal. And so I hear you when you say just more out of school time programs without a focus on students with disabilities won't be effective. Behavior is communication. And what often is seen is the behavior of a student as opposed to looking at what that student is trying to communicate in the room. And so that can result in disciplinary action that's not needed.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Councilmember Parker, for the question. I'm glad you asked this question because myself and three other parents, LaJoy Johnson-Law, Yolanda Corbett, and Anastasia Claiborne, we've actually have been advocating for out of school time for students with disabilities and making sure there is more inclusivity in that. And when we initially started our advocacy, I believe in 2021, we realized that we had to kind of start from the beginning because there were no data points. So we were actively working with Learn24 and their needs assessment to make sure that the appropriate questions were put onto the needs assessment to include not just at risk, but also students with disabilities to see how much access and what ward do they have the access to out of school times. It has been a learning process because one, the data did not exist, and two, a lot of the OST providers were willing to provide inclusivity, but they didn't know how. And so that was pretty much an uphill battle that we were not anticipating, but we are currently advocating for to this day about inclusivity. So and I am also part of the Needs Assessment Committee for the OST Commission. So the new initiatives that they are rolling out, I made sure that my voice was heard to include students with disabilities in that initiative, and it was. So I appreciate the OST Commission for listening to that. And I think it's honestly one of those things that my fellow advocates and I realized it was an issue that was there, but never really attacked. And that's what we did for almost 2 years, and we will continue to do. And I think we have a lot of support behind the OST Coalition, DC Action as well, because we've partnered with them as well in that space of inclusivity. And it's just something that we are just bringing up constantly to make sure that in these spaces that we're in, inclusivity is the forefront of the conversation.
I really appreciate that, especially minding this gap between the desire to provide access and inclusivity to students with learning disabilities and the know-how to do that. And I heard that from both of you, that there's a knowledge component to this and an efficacy that we need to focus on as a city to make sure that we're not just desiring to be inclusive, but actually doing a good job at it. One other question I would have more generally, and I know there was some dialogue with the chairman, is the council's role in supporting out of school time programming. The council, I was really proud to vote for enhanced funding, but again, going back to their technical solutions and adaptive solutions, the technical or the easy work is let's just give more money so that there is more programming. What are some of the more adaptive things like the inclusivity for students with learning disabilities that the council can lean more in to ensure that we are providing more of our young people access to out of school time programs?
Thank you for that question. I just want to say that I think Councilmember Parker, Councilmember Henderson, and also Council Member Mendelson and Council Member Robert White. I think you all have been very supportive. We have met with all of your offices in advocacy role, and it was very welcoming, and I appreciate the feedback and also the push for inclusivity. Yes, it's not just about funding. We also feel that it's also about training the OST providers as well. And what does that training look like on how to understand behaviors of a child? So not using negative language like the staff member saying that a child is bad, but because all behaviors are a form of communication. So if that child is having a particular behavior, the staff needs to be trained. There needs to be accountability held for those providers. I'm unsure as far as how council will handle, like, there may be more of a, the OST providers really having the funding to provide training. That's where council can step in, and not just training, but accountability. So training that is annual, or even having somebody come in to make sure that the providers are doing what they learned in training and things like that. So I appreciate your support and everybody's support thus far. And I just think that just adding little small components like training, understanding, even mental health training around these different learning disabilities and behavioral things like ADHD and autism, I think would be a really great step.
Quick follow-up there, and I know others may want to jump in. Who should own that training?
I don't think it should fall on the council, honestly.
No, I hope not, because I would not have great faith in that training.
But I think it should be on the OST providers and maybe an outside, maybe they would have an outside source, or even within the grant process itself, through Learn 24, maybe have a component of training in lieu of funds. So that would, to me, that would be more of a Learn 24 and Aussie role, that if, you know, you have to acquire this amount of training to acquire this amount of funding for your program.
Love that. Did others want to weigh in here in my last 40 seconds?
Sure. I would just add, I appreciate the question. In addition to funding, it really is about, and training for the providers, it's about making sure that parents and schools know the pathways to have high quality opportunities for students. Often navigating the school system on its own is really challenging as a parent. So navigating out of school time options can be even more challenging. Making sure there's a variety of opportunities for all students. And then for the nonprofits and the other providers, making sure they fully understand and have training on how to do evaluation to make sure the metrics and the goals that their program is setting out to do is truly doing that, whether it's an education outcome to support in school learning, or there's another socio-emotional outcome with this goal.
Thank you. That is my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. I do not have any other questions for you all. I want to thank you. I'm not asking you to submit anything additional, but if you want to, please feel free. The record closes November 6th. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and in the ways that you've already been involved with these issues. Thank you for that as well. So I'm going to close out this hearing. This has been a hearing on nominations from the mayor, 2 for the Commission on Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes Commission, and then 1 for the Students in the Care of DC Coordinating Committee. The time is 2:53, and this hearing or roundtable is adjourned.